To my dismay, Doug Walker, the man who does the Nostalgia Critic, made a review of Shrek, and he did not have an approving light of it. And it's one of my favorite animated movies of all time, and I can't just let bygones be bygones, so I have to talk about why I love the movie so much. And I'll link it down below if you want to watch it first. You can do that and then listen to me, or you can just watch me talk, whatever. But the main point that he was talking about is how the great parts of Shrek are those that are satire, and the parts of it that are slow are just the banter between Shrek and Donkey, the characters played by Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy. He just feels like they don't have very good chemistry together. He doesn't understand it. Like, he talks about a lot of the punchlines of their jokes that they talk about with each other. And, like, he just doesn't think that it jives. He's like, what's the point of this? Why is this funny? For me, though, I think that those two things actually mix together. The whole idea of satire and the idea that those characters are working together in a certain chemistry. What I mean by satire is it's basically making fun of the fairy tale monologue, like the idea that things are perfect. We all know what the fairy tale is, like with Cinderella. With the beautiful princess, she marries a handsome prince, they all live together happily ever after, it's all magic and sparkles, and you have beautiful fairies, they fight off the evil dragon, because evil is that clear cut. It's just an evil monster, and you destroy it, and you've saved everybody from the evil, and everything's good. This is the fairy tale monologue, and that's why the movie makes fun of it, because it's basically spitting in the face of that. It's talking about how unrealistic it is, and how that's just not the way that the world works. And some people might think that I'm reading too deeply into it, but I really don't think I am, because that's where Shrek comes in. Keep in mind that the two main characters of Shrek, which are Shrek and Donkey, don't fit into the fairy tale monologue at all. And there's two reasons why, one for each of them. Shrek, first off, is a horrible, hideous, ugly ogre. And he's disgusting and nobody likes him. He's antisocial, but that's because he doesn't fit in the group. They don't like him. They don't want him, so they drive him out. They don't want him in the group. So he's been driven to be isolated. He's not involved enough. He's not good enough. But Donkey, on the other hand, is too much. He's too social. He talks all the time. He doesn't have a lot of depth to him. He just talks and talks and talks. He's too social. He has too much. In fact, if you keep in mind, the woman who owns Donkey in the beginning tries to sell him off, even though he's a perfectly good donkey and he could be doing work for her. She can't stand him anymore, so she's trying to sell him off, even at the risk of him not talking for the guard, which he tries, and then her just looking crazy and getting in trouble with the guards and being labeled as crazy. She goes through that just to get rid of Donkey because she doesn't want to deal with him. Like, these guys are at opposite ends of the spectrum. But the funny thing is, it's like, if this is the middle, this is where the ideal fairy tale is. It's like, this one's Shrek and this one's Donkey, and they're being separated further and further away in a line. It's like they've gone so far that it actually wraps around the universe in a big circle, and they end up touching. So it's like, while they are just complete opposites, they are the same in the sense that they've both been so against this fairy tale image that they end up together. And that's the funny thing, is even though they're so different, they end up in the same situation for one reason or another. They're just counter to what the fairy tale image is. And that's the thing, even though they are so similar in that way, they conflict. Like, the thing about Shrek is he didn't choose to be the way he is. He's that way because people just won't accept him. They don't think that he's good enough. That's what he was talking about with the onion thing. Like, the onion joke is one of my favorite in the movies, but Doug Walker didn't seem to get that. For me, the funny thing about the ogre and the onion thing is that onions have layers. That was what he was talking about. Shrek picks up an onion, and he's peeling off the layers, because he's explaining to Donkey what it's like to be an ogre. Because this is after they were fighting off guards, and Donkey's like, oh, well, why didn't you just hurt them more? And he's talking about, like, oh, why didn't I just rip out their eyes and squeeze them into jelly? He's explaining how you can be more than that. And ogres are complicated. They have layers. Sure, an onion looks gross, and it makes you cry, and it smells funky, and it grows little white hairs when you leave it out in the sun. But beyond that, there's layers. You peel it back, and there's a lot of use for that. It can be tasty. It can be great for your ingredients. It has pragmatic uses. It has a place in society if you just peel back the layers. But Donkey doesn't get this. He's like, oh, well, that's ugly and unappealing. Why don't you say the ogres are like cakes? Because everybody likes cakes. Like, no, Donkey. Ogres are not like cakes. Like, they're not, like, that's the funny thing, is onions are not appealing. That's why Shrek is comparing himself to an onion. And Donkey just doesn't get that. He doesn't get that people just don't like him on the basis of being an ogre. That's what he was trying to convey, and he just gives up at that point, and he goes on with the parfait. Everybody loves parfait. You ever talk to someone who doesn't like parfait? Like, no, that's the point. It has to have layers, because on the outside it's ugly, but on the inside there's beauty, and nobody's willing to look past that. And Donkey just doesn't get that. Nobody gets that. But in reality, that's what the whole movie is about. That's why it's making fun of fairy tales. That's why it's all satirical, because it's just making fun of this image that everything's perfect. And that's where the chemistry between Shrek and Fiona come in. And he said he didn't really like that very much either, because he's talking about how the two characters are going through the classic, oh, well, I messed up and you messed up. Which, if you haven't seen the movie, basically, they kind of like each other, but Shrek is an ogre and Fiona is a princess. But, spoiler alert, don't listen for 10 seconds if you don't want it to be spoiled. It's going to be terrible, but I'm going to spoil it. And basically, Fiona has a curse on her that every time the sun goes down, the moon comes up, she turns into an ogre herself. And then when the moon goes down, the sun comes up again, she becomes normal, she's a human. This curse has been with her all of her life, and the only way to break it is for her to kiss true love for the first time, and then she can take on true love's form. That's why she wants to get married so much to Lord Farquaad, who requested Shrek and Donkey go on this journey to retrieve her. That's why she has to get married to him, so that she can fit this fairy tale role. She has to be normal. The thing is, though, they don't realize this about each other. Like, Shrek doesn't realize that Fiona really is an ogre half the time. Like, he doesn't get that. And once they develop feelings for each other, they don't know how to talk about it. There's one scene, like, kind of towards the end, like in the second third or so. Like, Fiona's talking with Donkey inside, and they're talking about what Fiona can do, and she just has no self-esteem, because she's talking about how she's a horrible, hideous, ugly beast, and who could ever love a horrible, hideous, ugly beast? But Shrek was eavesdropping in on that. He heard that phrase, and he thought that she was talking about him. Like, how can you be saying that I'm this hideous, ugly beast? And that's why he calls Farquaad's people to come and take her. And then she's like, wait, why are you doing this to me? And like, I heard everything you said, and I don't want anything to do with you. But she thought that he heard everything. She thought that he heard that she turns into an ogre, and that turned him off from her. So it wasn't them just being like, oh, I really know that this is going on. They didn't know then. In fact, they never figured it out. I mean, if you think about it, Shrek was alone because he thought that Fiona was judging him for his looks, and Fiona was alone because she thought that Shrek was judging her for her looks that happened when this happened. And that's why she was supposed to get married to Lord Farquaad. She can kiss him, take on his human form, and be free from the curse. And then she can finally fit into the narrative. Even though at this point it's not really what she wants. She just feels like she has to in order to be accepted. I mean, even someone like Shrek, who's just been so rejected, is forced to conform to that image because society just demands it and he has to fit in. That's why it works. It's not just the stupid thing that they really know, we all know what's going to happen. And that's what makes the ending scene in the chapel so special, when she explodes with light. And once again, hide your ears, you don't want to be spoiled, but when she takes true love's form, she becomes an ogre permanently, and not the princess. And she says, wait, what's going on? I thought I was supposed to be beautiful. And Shrek says, well, you look beautiful to me. Because she took on true love's form. She took on Shrek's form, and they can be together now. And they don't judge each other for their looks. That's what's counterintuitive to the culture. They don't have to be perfect. And then in the end, they have all the fairy tale creatures dancing, the lovely ones with the more ugly ones, like the ugly stepsister. Or was that the second one? I don't remember. But that's the thing. Like, it just works together. What else was he talking? He also talked about the dragon, and like, what's the joke behind the dragon? The dragon is a girl. Oh, that's funny. The context behind the dragon, though, isn't just that the dragon is a girl, which, if you don't know, the dragon is guarding Princess Fiona, and Shrek and Donkey have to slay it in order to save her. They don't actually slay it, they just hold it off. But the dragon is about to kill Donkey, and he's freaking out, and he's just throwing out compliments, because he thinks that's the only way he can survive. But it turns out the dragon is actually a girl dragon. And the joke is, she thinks that he's flirting with her. So she finds that so appealing, like, oh, someone loves me, I've been alone forever. So he takes him with her into, I don't know, like her dungeon or something. And it's just making him compliment her over and over again. She thinks that he just loves her, but he's doing this only to survive. And then Shrek comes in and tries to save him from her at the last minute. And then it comes with one of my favorite scenes ever from the movie, in which, Dragon is about to kiss Donkey, but he accidentally knocks him out of the way, and then Shrek falls upside down, and she kisses his butt. And you can instantly see the look in Dragon's face melt, like, ah! And then it's funny, like, just that scene, because it's showing that, once again, characters can step outside the traditional role. Like, you have the image of the monster, some serpent, just being mindlessly evil and wanting to destroy everything, but it shows that not only does it break that, it also has a desire to be wanted and accepted. And I think in the end, Donkey and Dragon actually end up hooking up, which is kind of sweet, but you know, it shows that they aren't always the tough one. When you think of someone being feminine, you see them desiring acceptance. They want someone to tell them that they're pretty. They don't necessarily have to conform to societal standards of beauty, like Fiona chose not to in the end. They just want someone to find them valuable. And that's why she found Donkey valuable. And then once she loses that and she realizes that they're trying to run away, she goes back into dragon mode and she's fighting off, which sort of adds a bit of character depth. That's what's interesting about it. I mean, it's also funny because, like, she's trying to flirt with the donkey, even though you would think it wouldn't work. Like, how could a donkey's penis fit into a dragon's stuff, you know? Well, that's digging me into a hole, but whatever. The point is, everything leads to the thesis of the movie, and the thesis of the movie is the whole idea of a fairy tale world isn't realistic, or it's not a good way to look at it, because in that case, beauty is only skin deep. You gotta look for what's beyond, whether that's Shrek and Donkey being rejected by societal standards and ending up with each other and having these character conflicts, but still bonding in the end, because they at least realize that there is this bullshit, and they can get together, and they still find value in that. Or if it's with Shrek and Fiona thinking that each other are being judged on the standard of society, and they think that the other one has accepted that standard, when in reality none of them have, and they just want to love each other and be with each other. Or if it's with the dragon, who actually just wants acceptance in that way, and thinks that she found it in Donkey, but realizes that she was just being used so that he could survive. You know, whatever case it is, it's all leading up to that same idea. It's the satire of the whole fairy tale monologue. It's making fun of that idea that things can just work out so perfectly and everything's fine, because the world is more complicated than that. And I've always found it kind of disturbing that we used to, or we still do, train our kids to accept this fairy tale vision. I know plenty of people who just live with that expectation that things are just going to work out right, or with their friends, or if they're going to find a partner or something. Like, they have certain standards that I think are arbitrary. People need to be more accepting of people for who they are inside. Or at least judging by your own standards and not standards that are set up by society, societal expectations. And I think that's what Shrek does. It tears that down. That's why I love Shrek. Do I love it more than Shrek 2? Probably not. I do think that Shrek 2 is a better movie, which Doug Walker also thinks. But I just think that Shrek is a great movie on its own. It has a lot of merit. And even if you don't get all the jokes, I feel like I get the vast majority of the jokes, because you gotta look at the context. But even so, I just feel like it has a lot of meaning to it. I just think it has a lot of value. And if you really look at it, it all leads to the same thing. Like, nothing is accidental and nothing is extra. Everything just works. Everything works towards the thesis, and that's why I love it so much. And that's why it means so much to me. It's about not judging things based on their appearance, and looking for what they are inside. And I just love stuff that feeds to your emotions like that. So that's my perspective. And if the Nostalgia Critic happens to be watching this and you made it this far, thanks. Let me know what you think if you happen to do that, which I doubt you did. But, oh well, that's my opinion. Thanks for watching.